2nd of November. First on the item is apologies for any absence.
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies from Councillor Flitter and substituting is Councillor Franks.
Thank you very much. Next item is the approval of minutes from the previous meeting, please. Do I have anyone to... Thank you, Councillor Lee. Do I have a second? Thank you. Can I have a vote then, please? Everyone all for? Any against or abstentions? Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. On to item 3. Is there any public participation? I don't believe there is. Thank you. And number 4, declaration of any interests.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to declare an interest in part of item 10, which is involves the fish pond meadow in Ashbourne. So I should be leaving the room for that agenda item, if that's okay.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And on to our first order of business, item 6, the anti-fraud, bribery and corruption strategy. Sorry, apologies. Mike, we're going to go for item number 10, actually. If we could, please. The asset management plan and land holdings review phase. Apologies.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is really in 2 halves. Part is regarding a proposed acquisition of land in Bakewell as an extension to Bakewell Cemetery, and part considering a disposal in Ashbourne. So turning to the first part, which is land adjacent to the existing Bakewell Cemetery. This is a proposal planning for the future. There's 3 to 4 years capacity left within Bakewell Cemetery, so we are looking at securing further space adjacent. There is a field adjacent as shown on the plan, and we are seeking the committee's authority to continue negotiations with the landowner with a view to securing a potential acquisition of that site. There's the site itself that we would need to agree to buy. There's also a right of way which is owned by the County Council, which we would also need to negotiate. So this is in 2 parts, really. We are looking for the go ahead to negotiate with the various parties to investigate the planning situation as well, with a view to bringing back a proposal to a future meeting of this committee for actually acquiring the land. So we're not seeking to consent to acquire it at the moment. It's just purely consent to negotiate and then bring that back to the committee. The other part of this is to also secure the funds in the Council's capital programme, so that they are clear alongside the other works that are either in the programme now or will be coming forward in future years. And that's suggested in recommendation 2, which is an amount of 125,000 in next year's capital programme, 24-25, and 75,000 in 25-26. First part is to cover the acquisition of the site and the various rights of way and fees relating to that. And the second part relates to the infrastructure works that would be needed to form cemetery paths, grave runs, and a car park and improvements to the access track. So that's the first part of the report. Shall I go on to the second before taking any questions? Or?
Should we do each in separate sections? Would that make sense? I think we've done that in the past. If you could, please, Mike. Open to questions, then, people. Councillor.
Sorry, this may be a silly question. It's not clear on the plan where that is in relation to where is the existing cemetery? Is it the land to the underneath it on the plan?
Through you, Chair. It's the land where you can see the paths and the circle and the sort of grid. So that's the far end of the cemetery. It ends at a hedge and then a wall, and then there's agricultural land, which is where this the site that we're looking at is part of that.
Right, got you, thanks.
Any other questions from anyone else? Councillor Buttle?
Thank you very much. Mike, I don't know, I know nothing about how much it costs to dig a grave and what have you, but £100,000 seems like quite a lot. In the longer term, like over the next 20, 30 years, however long it's going to be, will this pay for itself?
Through you, Chair. I don't have the detail on that, I'm afraid, because it isn't really my service that deals with burials. So I can certainly ask a colleague to confirm that to you. Obviously, you know, there are charges made. What we're looking at here with the 75,000 is the capital cost of the infrastructure works, really, car park, grave runs and paths. So that is very much a one-off cost at the start. And then obviously there's the cost of actually administering the service, which is dealt with separately to me. So I'm afraid I don't have that detail myself.
I was only curious, I'm still going to support it.
Councillor. Anybody, any questions for anyone else? Do I have any proposers at all? Thank you, Councillor Buttle. Have a second. So, Councillor Ripton. And if we could all vote for, please. And against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. That was supported. Thank you very much. Mike, would you like to go on to item 2 from yours, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this concerns a proposed disposal via a lease of an area of land in Ashbourne, which comprises 2 ponds in Fish Pond Meadows, as shown on the plan. These are in the ownership of the District Council, and they were originally transferred to the District Council in 1972 from Nestlé, with other land that came across to us from Nestlé. At the time, they came with a fishing club in situ, which was called the Wine Tavern Angling Club. It became Ashbourne Angling Club, but it ceased to exist, and the licence was terminated in September 2019. Since that time, although the District Council managed the wider sites, Fish Pond Meadows and the recreation ground adjacent to it, the pond itself has been unregulated for any fishing activity, and some of the infrastructure that was there, fishing pegs and boardwalks, have deteriorated over time, and some have had to be removed to maintain safety, and so it needs some investment really to make it safe and to make it suitable for continued use for fishing. We've been in discussion with various parties. We've had some sort of ad hoc interest in taking on the site, but latterly we've been in discussions with Friends of Ashbourne Park, who are, by their constitution, interested in the whole of the park, the recreation ground and Fish Pond Meadows, and looking to improve that area. And what we've looked to do is to see whether we can bring in a fishing club to not only regulate the fishing in that area, but also to improve the area, both in terms of managing the ponds, the fish stocks, etc., but also improving access, making sure that the fishing is accessible to people with disabilities, etc., and also to improve biodiversity in that area. So what we've done is we've advertised via an agent for expressions of interest, of which we received 3. And of those, we're recommending that we proceed with the one from the Ashbourne Royal Shrovetide Football Committee, which has a sublease to Dove Valley Angling Club. One of the other bids was from Dove Valley Angling Club, just as a standalone. But we feel that the one from the Shrovetide Committee is the most favourable proposal. There was a third from another angling club, and we're recommending that we go with the one from the Shrovetide Committee. That is the only one that actually produces an income for the council of £1,000 per annum. And we are seeking consent to proceed with a leasehold disposal of the site. We're looking at a 10 to 15-year lease, and we will be negotiating and agreeing terms in that lease in consultation with colleagues from community development and other studies that have been done around biodiversity to make sure that the new lease covers all of those areas, and then we will aim to get that lease in place for spring next year. It is subject to public open space consultation because it is an area of open space, and though we're not restricting anybody's use of the paths around the ponds, we will be restricting or managing the use for fishing, and therefore we will have to do public open space consultation. But if there's any objections to that, we will come back to committee, but otherwise we will proceed with agreement of the lease. So happy to answer any questions on that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions for anyone on that one? Councillor Ripton.
Again, forgive my ignorance. Would the consultation, would that include any potential objections from the public, either in regards to, I don't know, increased footfall and the impact on neighbours, and also the impact on, I guess, wildlife that may have made its home there now? And it's not because I have a particular view, but I could see that becoming a risk for the council.
Yeah, through you, Chair. I think we're trying to strike a balance here by having that area properly managed, but not turning it into a sort of restricted sort of private fishing club where the public are excluded from the area around it. So the advice that we've had is that the area does need management in terms of the reed beds, etc., to improve biodiversity in any case, whether it's fished or not. And what's happening at the moment is there's unregulated fishing going on, and there's the potential there, because it's not managed, that there are health and safety risks with that, particularly with the fishing pegs not being maintained. So we're looking to improve the safety of the area, but we're not looking to massively increase the use of the area over and above what has been in place since the 1970s with the previous angling club.
Thank you. Anyone else for any questions? Councillor Buttle.
Just like to say, Mike, this one's a good one. I'm really pleased with this one. It's really good the way it's come together. You look like you've found all sorts of really nice compromises. Thank you very much, and definitely going to support it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Buttle. And just to assure again, as part and parcel, any of the environmental factors are being figured into the lease, aren't they? As part and parcel, just to ask that question. And any outlay for repairs as well, obviously, to the areas.
Yes, so the report's based on expressions of interest that we've had, and we're recommending that we take that one forward from the Royal Shrovetide Committee, and that we will then develop an actual lease document, and that will embody terms regarding accessibility, regarding biodiversity, and all of the other checks and balances that need to be in place with managing a site such as this, and also taking account of the fact that it's also part of the flood reservoir for Ashbourne as well. So the Environment Agency also have a role in that. So we'll make sure that all of that is covered in the lease document that's agreed.
Thank you. Anyone wish to propose? Thank you, Councillor Buttle. And a second. And could all have those four, please? Is that unanimous? Yeah, thank you. On to the next item, which is Going back to item 6, apologies. Go to the anti-fraud and bribery and corruption. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Chair. So this is an update of a previous policy that was prepared in 2018, and there were no significant changes. It's just been updated to reflect changes in job titles and some developing good practice. As it says in the policy statement at Appendix A, the Council will not tolerate any form of fraud, corruption, bribery, abuse of position or other malpractice. And nothing further to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions from any of the councillors? Councillor.
I have a question. I was just wondering, in the section of the policy about housing benefit and council tax support fraud, I was just wondering how prevalent that is.
We've not discovered during internal audit reviews any fraud in recent years in either of those services. Going back a few years, there was some fraud, and we reported that to the Department for Work and Pensions, but nothing recent. I think in the past we've even taken prosecutions.
Councillor Ritten.
In 3.2.3, in relation to members declaring interest, I may have got this wrong, but I think in a recent meeting we had an incident where somebody declared an interest but then stayed in the meeting. And the question I've got is this like a voluntary code level, or is this sort of a statutory provision, or is there a way to strengthen that, or is it just something we have to live with?
I think this is covered in the Council's constitution under Part 4, which I think is rules of meetings. And I think what it says there is that if a member's got a disclosable pecuniary interest, they must leave the meeting.
Thank you, Karen. Any other questions? Any proposals on that one? Thank you, Councillor Ripson. Any seconds? And all those for, please. Unanimous. Thank you. On to agenda item 7 now, if you could, please. This is the internal audit progress update.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so this report's just to inform you on how we're progressing with the 23-24 internal audit plan, and also to provide an update on the implementation of audit recommendations. At Appendix 1, you can see that we've issued 2 reports, both with a reasonable conclusion. We didn't detect any fraud and there's no major concerns. Appendix 2, that provides you with the full plan for 23-24 and highlights which areas we've completed and which audits were in progress at the time I wrote the report. We have considered whether we need to revise the plan because, as you can see, we've only issued 2 reports, but the team is now fully staffed. We have used all of the contingency, but we did build in quite a big contingency because we knew at the start of the year that we didn't have audit staff. We have now got 2 full-time audit staff, and we are hopeful that we should be able to complete the bulk, if not all, of the original plan. So moving on to the implementation of internal audit recommendations, I'm not going to cover that in detail here because the Appendix 3 is in the exempt section of the report. But in summary, there are 25 recommendations where implementation is in progress or has not started yet. There's 2 high priority, 10 medium priority, and 13 low priority recommendations. We've had responses from managers on those recommendations, the progress that's being made, and you can see in the appendix those managers' comments. So the recommendation is that the report be noted. I'm happy to take any questions immediately on the first part of the report. If there's any detailed questions on Appendix 3, then we will need to move into a closed session. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Jenny. Any questions from the Councillor?
Sorry, again, another newbie question. I couldn't find Appendix 3. I've been looking through was I supposed to be looking at a different document? I don't need to, you don't need to tell me the detail of it, I just need to know where it is.
I think there was a restricted reports pack. So when you went on to Modern Gov, you could have chosen, I think, the open reports pack or the restricted reports pack. Also, the other way it was sent was via an Outlook invitation, and it was attached to one of those.
Thank you. Any further questions from anyone else?
Can I just ask, sorry, this is another silly question
Okay,
perhaps, why this is restricted? I mean, I'm looking hard and I can't see anything that particularly refers to individuals.
Kerry, if you can answer that one.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Yeah, myself and Karen did go through some of the recommendations, and it was felt that there is some information in there that was for prevention of crime and about statistics relating to that. And there was also some businesses that that were in there, so it was felt that there was certain information that we felt should be restricted to protect those that were subject to the report and the recommendations by our internal audit to make sure that they are addressed.
Any other questions or anything come back from yourself, Councillor Shelley? Councillor Ripton, anything from yourselves? Anyone to propose? Thank you, Councillor Buttle. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Shelley. And can I all have a vote for, please? I believe that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. On to item 8, which is the arrears write-off 23-24. Karen, please. Thank you.
So this is a regular report that I bring roughly every 6 months to inform members of write-offs that I've approved under delegated authority and seek approval for write-offs over £10,000 from the committee. So the write-offs over £10,000 are itemised in Appendix 1. For data protection rules, we don't normally name the organisations concerned in an open meeting, but I'm happy to take any questions from members. The reasons for the write-offs are given in the report.
Thank you, Karen. Any questions from anyone? Councillor Ripton.
I had 2 questions. First was in relation to, I think you call them unpaid non-domestic arrears. Do we sell that debt, or is it just written off?
The debts here will be just written off, but before we get to that stage, we go through various steps that are identified in the debt recovery policy, and I put a link to that in the report. So we will go through the usual reminders and so on. In some cases, we'll take court action and get a liability order that enables to do further steps. We can also send an enforcement agent in. In the past, we've not sold the debt, and it's not something we've looked into. If you look at the table 2, it just shows that we have quite high rates of recovery, over 99% for council tax and over 98% for business rates, which is quite good, especially compared to other authorities. So it's not something we'd explored. If I was going to consider that, I would need to look at the methods and be sure that the methods that the companies use aligned with our processes. So no, not at the moment.
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't sure to what extent there was even a market for that kind of debt, but yeah, just curious.
Yeah, there is. I have been approached, but we've never acted on it.
And then the second question was, I was reading, I think, on Tuesday just about the current sort of record rate of corporate insolvencies and wondered whether that meant there were sort of risks in the forecast, or variances potentially in the forecast that we want to talk about. But
Well, I don't think I've forecast the write-offs for the rest of the year in this report. I mean, Table 1 indicates that at the half-year stage, if members were minded to approve the arrears in this report, the write-offs would total 223,000. Looking beneath at the foot of the table, you can see the write-offs for previous years, and for business rates in particular. The half-year figure already exceeds the prior year levels, and I think certainly it's going to get. We're going to get more in the second half of the year. So I think partly that reflects the fact that while there was COVID, we didn't do any debt recovery because we didn't feel that was appropriate. Members supported that, and then a light touch afterwards. So to some extent, there's a bit of a catch-up in our own debt recovery. But I think also there were a lot of rate reliefs during the COVID years, and they're now being phased out. So I think we're now getting companies facing the full rate bills that they didn't see before, and that that aligned with the general economy is causing the increase.
thank you.
Councillor Shelley. Councillor
Sorry, I'm not certain if I'm looking at the same table 1. If I'm correct in that, I'm trying to find a page number, page 81. Is that right? Yeah. I mean, it looks to me like the total written off in 22-23 is greatly reduced on previous years, which must be a good news story. I take what you're saying about COVID having an impact in the previous years, but if you go back and compare with a non-COVID year, those figures are very, very similar to the COVID ones. So, I'm not complaining. It looks like good news. Is that not a correct interpretation of that?
Through you, Chair. So for the first half year, if members approve the write-offs in the report, there will have been £169,000 written off, and that exceeds the amount for the full year of any of those prior years. I think the reason the figure was so low in 22-23 was that we took less debt recovery. There were fewer courts that we went to. So I recall saying at the time that I thought the figures were unusually low and that they would eventually catch up with us, and I think that's what's happening now.
Councillor.
So I was just wondering about this. So this list of the write-offs over £10,000. I've noticed that the period of charge for each of them is an awfully long time. And does that suggest that we should perhaps be taking action sooner so that the debt doesn't rack up quite so much?
We would have been taking action, and we might have been going through the courts. Yeah. But once it gets to the liquidation stage, or the company's dissolved, there's nothing further.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I agree, and I'm going to support these write-offs. I'm just thinking that if a company that's just gone bust that still owes us some rates from 2016, does that mean that in 2017, 2018 we should have been doing more to make sure that everybody was keeping on top of it? If you see what I mean.
Yeah, I can take that back to revenues, but I'm sure they'll be able to show me that they were pursuing these arrears, but obviously they weren't successful. I'll take that back.
Thank you, Karen. Anybody else? Do I have a proposer at all? No. Thank you, Councillor Ripton. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Lees. And could I have everyone 4, please? That's unanimous. Thank you, everybody. On to the next item, which is the item 9, the annual report on the regulation of Investigatory Powers Act, or RIPA.
I'm going to go with RIPA. It's easier to say. Good evening, members. This is the annual report for the RIPA, which is, if you're familiar with, it's all to do with covert investigations. And we are obliged annually to bring this report to you. And although the recommendations are split over two decisions, and it's just that the first one is all about the well, we haven't had any RIPA authorisations over the last 12 months, and we haven't actually had any for a number of years. We're talking quite a number of years. And although we are obliged to, to come and actually tell you that, but why this report is slightly longer than that is that we did have an assessment through the past year, and they did put forward some amendments to our policy, and that's what the second recommendation on this report is all about. They are detailed within the report, and it's to do with that there's, just bear with me, it's in 2.4, which is split up into A and B. I'll take the B one first because that's just deletion of references to some obsolete procedures and guidance. And part A is all about some communications data and just making sure that our policy does reflect what the statute says in terms of 73 of the Act. It is listed in 2.6 what the tests are for communications data, and you can read through those, and they will be, if with members' approval, they will be updated into our policy to reflect current guidance. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any questions? No? Do I have a proposer at all? Oh, Councillor Shelley, I'll take you as a proposer. And there's a second, please, for Councillor Ripton. And can I have everyone vote for, please? I believe that's unanimous. Excellent, thank you very much. On to the next item, which is item 11 now, succession planning.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll take the item. So, members, this is part of a suite of reports which you've recently considered either through Council or through the Scrutiny Committee regarding the issues of recruitment and retention which are facing the authority over the coming years. This particular report is talking about succession planning, which was one of the initiatives identified in the earlier reports. And this is really about making sure that where we have existing members of staff, existing potential within the organisation, that we try and maximise that potential. We keep those employees, we develop them, and we make them the best they possibly can be in order that they may secure that next step in their career for the benefit of the authority by way of a promotion to a future post that may well become vacant. I've talked previously through the age demographic of the organisation. That's set out on page 111. So you can see from that the age ranges that we have in terms of the existing workforce, there are a significant number of employees who within the next 5 years are likely to reach the age of retirement or even possibly retire earlier than one would normally expect. And as an organisation, a very small organisation, we need to prepare as best we can for that. So this is really about identifying where that potential exists through the annual personal development appraisals that all members of staff have. It's a two-way conversation. It's trying to understand where an employee may want to be within 5 years, where they see their career going, where they see their role at Derbyshire Dales possibly going, and if it is considered that there is a willingness on their part and we see the potential in them to perhaps step up in that time period, then we will look to invest in them and, as I say, make them the best possible candidate that can be as and when that opportunity arises. There's an important point to mention here, though, is that we do not and we cannot promise an individual that they definitely will be the next director of or manager of. This is about looking at their existing skill set, developing that skill set, and if they can't utilise that and benefit the Derbyshire Dales, then clearly they will have that opportunity to benefit other organisations as part of their own career progression. But this is very much about keeping the good people that we have, developing them, and making sure that we do have a degree of natural succession in the organisation. So if members are in agreement, this policy has gone through the normal processes of corporate leadership team,
staff consultation. It's been through the joint consultative group, and it's presented to you this evening for final sign-off, should you wish to do that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Do I have any questions? Councillor Ripton.
I think this is really good, Paul, because it is obviously a burning platform and a really important thing to get right. I fully endorse what's in here. The question is, are there things you would like to do or levers you would like to have that aren't in here? Is it that fall outside of the policy, I guess, that you're restricted with?
Through you, Chair, absolutely, because as I mentioned at the Scrutiny Committee of the week, I don't think addressing all of the recruitment and retention challenges we've got can be dealt with by one single silver bullet, so to speak. It is going to require a suite of initiatives, and we had a really good discussion at the Scrutiny Committee of the week regarding the measures that I'd put forward in the report to Council, which whilst we didn't get a chance to debate in Council, we had a very good discussion in Scrutiny around that. And the intention is to actually start to take some of those forward, because there was no objections from members to at least considering them to the next stage. And over the coming months, I will be looking to bring forward more detailed worked up proposals for members to consider in order that we can try and tackle this challenge in a number of different ways. This is just one way.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Oh, Councillor Shelley first.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've got several questions, if that's okay. I mean, if I just set them out and if that's all right. So I think, again, it's a fantastic report, fully in the spirit of what we discussed the other day at Scrutiny, and I'm 100% behind it. That absolute need to hold on to really good people and develop them and encourage them to stay, and also to, that also acts as a beacon, really, as a recommendation to other people who may consider coming to work here if they see that the workforce is being treated in that way. So definitely behind it. I'm just interested in some of the details, really. So it's a great report, but I'm trying to get some grasp, and I accept this may not be possible. So we are in slightly uncharted territory here, perhaps, in terms of the cost that it might be likely to save the organisation over a period of time. I could really only see one figure in there, I think in section 2.2, relating to the cost to resources of 243,000. So, it would be nice to have some sense of how this is going to benefit the organisation in terms of resources which aren't spent on having to recruit new people, having to bring in consultants to cover roles, that kind of thing. And I suppose allied to that is it might be a finger in the air assessment of how many posts we're likely to have succession planning running alongside at any one time. Maybe if I just hang on to those two questions and come back to my further two in a second.
Yes, through you, Chair. In terms of the costs it will potentially save the organisation, I think that is largely dictated by the types of posts that you're having to recruit to. To give you a real-life example, the recruitment exercise that we recently went through for James McLaughlin's replacement, that was a national exercise involving targeted recruitment consultants, and they are very expensive to undertake. At the opposite end of the extreme, it may well be that we're looking to develop a succession plan for a more junior member of staff, which wouldn't necessarily have the same costs, but in terms of the benefits of retaining that organisational knowledge, clearly there is a number of non-cashable benefits, if you like, which we can realise. But I think when you look at the costs of recruitment, which are increasing because we're doing more of it, and the costs of agency staff, as mentioned within the report, I think even if we can only save a fraction of that, it would be very worthwhile doing, clearly. But I think it really does depend upon the types of posts that we might look to have succession plans in. As a corporate leadership team, when we considered this, there are a lot of very good individuals in this organisations, perhaps at the middle management or even lower than that level. And we're very clear that it is a two-way conversation, because some people may not want to progress into those more senior posts. They may be quite happy where they are. But what we're going to trial, if members approve this evening, is through the personal development appraisals, which commence every January, we're going to start to tease out what that level of aspiration is and where that interest is. And from my point of view, I think the more succession plans we can have, the better. Because it's not always involving financial resources. It's about training and developing on the job, opening their awareness, bringing them into meetings that they might not otherwise be invited to participate in. So there's not always a financial cost. There is always a time cost, and clearly we need to manage that. But it really is about having as many people as we can who are willing to actually embrace this opportunity, and ultimately the organisation will benefit. And if the organisation doesn't benefit, they will certainly benefit, because they'll move on and hopefully on to bigger and better things.
Okay.
Councillor.
Yes, that doesn't quite answer my question, but I accept that we are. I think it's great that we're exploring this, and perhaps if we're able to, as we pass it tonight, as I hope we do, we're able to revisit to see how successful it's been on a regular basis. Just a couple of other sort of questions about how it might work in practice. Is there a sense that it may mean that somebody might be doing parts of two jobs? So in other words, they might still be doing, if you've got somebody who is identified as a potential candidate for succession, that they retain part of their original role and sit alongside somebody to shadow them in the succession planning. I don't quite understand how that might work. And then I suppose following on from that, if that's the case, if somebody is identified as a strong candidate for succession, will that then potentially have a knock-on effect further down the structure? Is that how you see it working?
I can take the last point. I would certainly hope that that's the case, such that if we've got a senior manager who may well aspire to be a director, for example, that the people below them in their team will also see the benefits, and we can actually help them develop as well. So, gradually we want to make sure that we're moving people up through the organisation. As people leave, that there is a natural successor in most teams. I think that would be the best place, because then you have retained that organisational knowledge. Whilst it's always beneficial and helpful for the organisation to bring new people in, I think when we look at the demographic of the organisation at the moment, I am really concerned about the loss of corporate knowledge that we could potentially experience over the next 5 years. So I think we need to get the balance right in terms of bringing new people in with fresh ideas and approaches, whilst also maintaining sufficient knowledge and experience in the organisation such that we don't run the risk of failure. And we have talked about previously, it's mentioned in this report, we are a very small organisation. We have some critical people who are in that older age demographic that they are in singleton posts. And if they leave, we do lose a lot of organisational knowledge. So we'll very much be focusing upon the singleton post perhaps as one area to look at, to see what a succession plan might look like, but also focusing on others as well. In terms of the people doing two roles, we don't envisage it being quite like that, because clearly there are the capacity constraints that we need to try and manage. But the most obvious example is to expose members of staff in discussions, in meetings, in initiatives that they wouldn't normally get involved in. Now, that doesn't have to be a continuous thing. That could just be as opportunities arise. And we've done quite a lot of that, literally over the last few weeks on the emergency response to flooding. We brought 2 members of staff in who've never experienced it before, because we're very conscious of the fact that there will be a time when some of us who are very experienced at dealing with that scenario won't be here. So, as a practical initiative, there was an opportunity there, and we took it, and they did really, really well. And they've learned a lot from it, and we'll look to engage them in the future. That's just one example, but that could be repeated time and time again across the organisation without expecting people to do 2 roles.
Thank you. Councillor Shelley, further? Councillor Lees.
My question's been answered, Chair. Thank you.
Oh, very good. Anybody else? Any other queries? One from myself was actually, I think this is really good, taking people's personal development and pushing it forwards. Is how we're going to promote this, because I think that's part of it, is how we're going to make the career of Derbyshire County Council, Derbyshire Dales District Council, sorry, if I'm castigated. How do we make that an attractive place to come and work?
I think that is a really good point, and I think if we can demonstrate through practical experience and case study examples how we've actually developed people as part of future recruitment exercises, then I think that does make us more appealing than perhaps others, because some people perhaps do look at smaller organisations and think there's no capacity to grow, and in some respects I can understand that, but what we can demonstrate is that with smaller organisations becomes greater opportunity. And I think you find that a lot of our employees, they are exposed to far more areas of work than perhaps a similar employee in a much larger organisation would do. That's what we tend to find from our experience, and certainly the people that we've brought in. And that in itself is something that can be quite attractive. So again, I think it's a number of initiatives, but absolutely it's the case study examples and really selling this.
Yes, no, I think it's good. Do I have a proposer at all? Thank you, Simon. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Lees. Should we have a vote of everyone for, please? And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm conscious we've got, I think, item 12, which was covering Appendix 13, Appendix 3 in one of the previous items. I wasn't sure if, since you guys had a read of it, if you had any questions on Appendix 3 at all. I was conscious you hadn't picked it up then. You sure? Okay, just wanted to make sure that's what we needed to open up. Well, thank you very much, everyone.